Question number 5. Is Candida overgrowth real? All right, let me ask you guys, have you guys heard about this Candida overgrowth or fungal overgrowth? Because I see it all the time on ads for social media. I see people talking about a Candida treatment, a fungal treatment, a treatment to get rid of some of this bad bacteria going on, bad yeast going on, how this is the end all, cure all for everything. Well, my job is to give you the evidence of what the actual evidence shows, and not to give you hype, but to give you science behind what you may have heard about. So just in general, Candida or yeast are part of our normal gut flora or gut microbiome. It is normal to have yeast in your GI tract. We typically have it in our mouth, and we typically have it in our colon as well. And so this is a normal part of what is going on inside our GI tract. So if you have Candida, that is there. In fact, it's normal to have yeast in your stool. And one of the things you have to realize is that if someone's testing your stool for yeast, guess what? They are full of it. 100% they are, because it is part of the normal gut microbiome to have yeast and Candida in your stool. And there's no way to diagnose that if that is a normal part of your gut microbiome. Absolutely it is. Now, the most important thing about Candida is location, location, location. Because Candida is normal in your mouth, it's normal in your colon, but it's not normal in other places. It is not normal in your bloodstream. And if it goes into your bloodstream, there is a chance you can have a really bad infection and really bad problems from that. You can actually die from having a yeast infection inside your blood. And the small intestine, this is where it becomes very controversial, because there's not very good evidence that you should have yeast in your small intestine. And so for some of us in the GI world, if we see an abnormal growth of yeast in your small intestine, we actually may want to consider treating that to see if you feel better. The data is very mixed. It's very controversial. We don't know exactly what the long-term consequences are for treating our patients who have yeast in their small intestine. Now, there is no point at all, though, of treating you for this Candida infection if you happen to have it based on a stool test, because guess what? That is perfectly normal. Now, I've seen other things out there on social media on if you have Candida, like some sort of Candida or yeast infection, you need to treat it with a low sugar diet, because people seem to suspect that a high sugar diet makes it more likely for the yeast to come back. What do you think the data says behind that? Come on, guys. You know the answer. There is no evidence that a high sugar diet is going to make it more likely for you to develop a yeast infection. It doesn't make sense in terms of mechanism, because keep in mind, most of the yeast is in your colon and you digest in your upper GI tract, so all that sugar is really not going to get into your colon. And there's no clinical evidence that putting patients on a high sugar diet is going to make them more likely to develop this yeast, or putting them on a low sugar diet is going to make them less likely to develop their yeast. So no evidence whatsoever. So in summary, yeast is normal in your stool. There is controversy about whether it's normal in your small intestine. And if we see it in your small intestine, those of us may consider treating that, though the evidence is not all the way there.